Is everyone able to see the starting slide? Should have asked that before I started, really, shouldn't I? So my name is Sarah McRae. I'm the clinical educator for Greater Manchester, and I specialise with the social care sector at the moment. And Greater Manchester Training Hub, we're part of the HEE Training Hub model. It's been designed to meet the educational needs of the MDT team in primary and social care. So as an extension of that, we work with learning environments to support students. So why are we all here? So we've all come today to hear about how we can create an excellent learning and clinical learning environment within our social care environments, whether that be a home environment or care home visits, for example. And we're here so that we can help really build the future workforce within social care, and really sort of wanting to get healthcare learners understanding the need for their expertise within the social care environment, to understand the complexities and natures of social care work, and to really understand how, regardless of where they choose to work in their future, that a relationship and an interaction with the social care sector is important, and that it's that professional development is really, really helpful. And we also want to help you with developing your working environment to become a clinical learning environment. So we'll be working with you to help support your environment to be as supportive as possible. We'll be able to provide opportunities for the learners that we place with you, and we're hoping that you'll be able to help them master the professional role and specialism that they have within social care. So we're not just talking about, the generic nursing students that we're all very used to seeing out and about, but we're also looking at other healthcare learners such as physiotherapists, occupational therapists, speech and language therapists, dietetics, counselling, a whole host of healthcare individuals and professionals that could be really impactful within your environments, depending on what the needs are of your service. And we're hoping that you'll be able to provide a rich and diverse learning environment. You can empower any of these healthcare learners to develop and embed their critical thinking, not just about what their role is, but also understanding what other people's roles are and how you would interact and support each other's roles going forward to create the best possible care for your service users. And then to support our future workforce then within a fantastic supportive learning environment, which you all have, and embracing the key knowledge skills of the social care role and really putting that at the forefront of their minds. Whether or not they choose to do that within their careers, it will help strengthen those relationships and opportunities going forwards. So what are we as the Greater Manchester Training Hub? What can we offer to support you? So we're a not-for-profit training hub. We are funded by Health Education England. We are here specifically to promote primary and social care and develop the staff and retain the staff within it. So therefore, the HEE have got a tariff that's paid directly to placement. If someone can let that person in, that's great. Hi, Tina. If the Health Education England provide tariff, and that will help fund backfill for staff that may be supporting learners. It can help enhance the environment in which those learners are training in. It can be used to do CPD for your own staff, which would in exchange support the learners in future. So the tariff is up to you how you spend it. I'm not going to go too much into detail about how much it is, but it works out about, I think it's about £130 per week per learner for the learners that we're talking about sending out to your areas. And that money goes straight to the clinical learning environment. We offer funded training to existing workforce. At the moment, the majority of this training is aimed at the primary care workforce, but due to the nature of the work that I do hear about other training funded and free and otherwise across the Greater Manchester area, and I do regularly share that out with the homes that I work with and the other services that I work with, to try and support you with your staff and your continuing professional development, because if your staff are happy and well trained, then that's going to impact on the learners when they're with you. You have a locality practice education facilitator such as myself and the lovely Danielle, if she wants to pop a camera on and have a wave. And we come out and we support the clinical learning environment such as yourselves to help the students throughout the whole year. We're always available generally during office hours. And we do a lot of work with the students as well, but we'll put on training sessions for them. We're there to support yourselves and them if there were any problems. And we do offer the training to your staff that's required in order to support the learners in practice. We could also signpost to relevant training opportunities for all the learners that are out on placement as well. As I say, we will already be doing that for your own staff. We offer one-to-one support, either face-to-face, Microsoft Teams, email or telephone. One of my managers has just joined in now who works at one of the homes that I do work with, and she'll be able to let you know that I'm as supportive as is required. Will support as much as you need, but I'll also step back so I'm not imposing but as soon as you become comfortable with what you're doing, I take a bit more of a back seat and you can just get in touch with me as and when you need it. We give extra additional support, for example, if we learn a timetable. So if you've got a student that maybe needs access to other learning opportunities, we'll help with supporting that. We'll link you up with other environments within your locality to help to support giving a much broader and deeper learning opportunity to those learners, depending on what the learners' learning objectives are. We'll help with possible spoke placements, and as we know, with the past few years, it's been quite difficult with COVID. We know that people have to go and isolate for a period of time, even though they may not be feeling unwell. So we can offer maybe project work where we can get that learner to focus and we can take responsibility for that, or support you to encourage your learner to do some project work that would be utilised well within your environment. We also support you to maintain what we call the SSSA training, which is the standards for student supervision and assessment training, which is the new, well, I say new, it came out in 2018, but it's the guidance written by the NMC that we utilise to support our nursing learners out in practice. And then PAR, which is the online record of achievement programme. So nowadays our learners don't have paper booklets they bring out for you to complete. Everything is kept online. It's not a complicated system, but as with any new piece of technology, there is a bit of a period where you have to get used to it. So we will be there to support you getting used to that system and how to use it appropriately, and we'll give you the training required and access to that. And then obviously we're always developing our future workforce and curriculum. We're working closely with Health Education England, and we work closely with the HEIs, which is the higher education institutes, such as the 4 universities across Greater Manchester, but we also work across borders, and we work with universities outside of Greater Manchester as well. Depending on where you are placed, you may get learners from outside of Greater Manchester as well, if you were to go forward with this. So what are the current challenges for supporting learners in social care then? So there's quite a few things that may spring to mind. So you might feel like it's a lot of impact on the time of your staff. The new guidelines that the NMC brought out show that our learners can actually work with all professionals within the MDT. They don't necessarily have to have a registration. They can be unregistered workforce. Everybody within the team within a social care environment has got experiences that they can share with that learner. They can help build that learner's repertoire of knowledge and skills and experience. There's no expectation anymore, as with previous incarnations of student support, that they have to work with one particular person all the time. And that used to be the guidance, and that's changed now, which makes it a little bit more flexible for us when we're working with social care providers that may not have registrants working for them. As I think one of you here today might not have nursing staff as registered staff as easily accessible as other areas. There's not as much paperwork to be completed as you possibly think. There's easy to access documentation online, so you don't have to rely on your learner to remember to bring the paper booklet in. Like I know I used to forget to bring mine in quite regularly when I was on placement, and it used to be covered in all sorts of unknown stains that we shall say no more about. At least with it being online, it's going to be protected and easy to access. The expectation is the learner, that this is generally speaking here, we're talking about nursing students here, would normally have 3 interviews during the across the scheduled placement that they're in. They'd have one when they start, one in the middle and one at the end. That's usually a similar model for most of our healthcare workers. So, a bare minimum would be 3 meetings with that student. Although, we no longer consider our students to be an extra pair of hands, because although they are supernumerary, the expectation is that they are kept supernumerary. While they're working with you and whilst they're learning, they're going to be easing that workload anyway as a byproduct of being there. So although they can't be utilised as another member of staff, you will find that whilst you've got a learner in, they will make your workload that little bit easier, because they will be taking on parts of the roles that your staff will be working. The other thing is the students are aware of what needs doing and when it needs doing, and they should be, it's up to them. They're adult learners. They should be informing you of when that needs to be done. And they're usually pretty good. But also we're here as the PEF team, and we'll always be there to support you and remind you if something needs to be done. And we're always available during office hours for support. And obviously, sometimes you might be sort of thinking, well, what else is in it for us other than hopefully producing the next amazing social care workforce. But there's also, like I say, there's tariff and funding, so there will be some monetary reward for supporting these learners. And like I say, I think after September it's going up to about £130 per week per student. Now I'll go through in a bit, but it does take a bit of time for that money to come through, and there's a bit of work has to be done with HE in order to do that, but we'll go through that in a bit. So you might think there's also a lot of organisation when looking after learners, but we try and take on a lot of that from our side at Greater Manchester Training Hub for you. So we will be the ones that engage with the universities to discuss the placement of the learners. So they'll contact us and tell us that they've got learners on a particular date, and then we'll match those up to the dates that you've told us that you can support a learner. Or we'll ask you and we'll say, we've got this type of learner and this type of learner, which one would you like? So it might be that we've got some physiotherapists and we've got some nurses. What would you prefer? Do you want a mixture? And again, that's entirely up to you, and we'll support you as best we can with that. And we help. We can help with the spoke arrangement, but realistically, the learners are adults. They should be organising those themselves, with a little bit of support from you in direction by telling them who to contact. And like I said, the learners are aware of everything that they need to be attaining while they're with you. So it is the expectation that they should be leading with that as well. So from your point of view, it's a case of knowing when the learner's going to come and just making sure that they have somebody, a point of contact to be learning with. And then obviously, if you wanted to, it's as complex as you want to make it. If you wanted to do anything extra on top of that, but we are here and we do a lot of that support with you. So what makes a great learning environment? So an environment that can provide opportunities for meaningful learning experiences. So what we do find is our students come out with set learning objectives that they know they need to get done. They have guidance with boxes that tell them what proficiencies they have to attain. Now, they know what they've got to get done in a specific time, and they will marry that up to the kind of environment that you are, and they'll go, I think I can get X, Y, and Z done while I'm with you. And you might say to them, that's great, and that's what you need to get from your learning experiences. But then you can say, well, we're quite a specialist unit in that for example, it might be that you might be a home that looks after somebody with a rare condition. So let's say Huntington's disease, for example, and it might be that you say, well, I think, this might be something that you might want to look into or learn a bit more about. How about we guide you to go and do some more work on that? So whilst that might not sign off a box within their portfolio, it is something that would be useful for them in the future to understand and know, and you can provide them with that. So it's about picking out learning opportunities that are very unique to where you work. So it could be that you have a sensory garden, and whilst that's not a proficiency, getting the student involved in how to create a sensory garden, why you have those particular plants and why they're at that level and why they're at other levels, why do they smell so much, why do they not smell so much, etc., etc., is a really important thing for those learners to understand, because it's looking at a bigger depth of the work that you do, and it's not just ticking off clinical skills. You guys have got so much to offer in very broad and different strokes, depending on where you're all coming from. we expect our learners to contribute in order to meet the learning outcomes. We don't want them to be very passive. We don't want to be stood back listening to you and watching you. We want them to get involved. We want them to put forward, their thoughts and ideas, as well as listening to your, your clinical skills and judgment as well. We want them to be valued by the whole team. So we're expecting them to not just work with your managers or your nurses, if you've got nurses. We want them to be working with everybody within your team, from admin, management, cooks, chefs, your support staff. Everybody within the team is an important cog, and this, that's how your team works. But equally, our student healthcare workers need to know how your teams work, and to value and respect every member of that team. And then obviously consideration given to equality and diversity with reasonable adjustments in place when required. So if we've got a learner that's coming out that may need a reasonable adjustment, for example, they may be partially sighted, they'd let you know before they come out, and we make reasonable adjustments where we can for them. Or maybe somebody who has a physical impairment, so isn't able to get up and down stairs. Is there an alternative? Would they be able to get up and down a lift, or would they be able to just work on one floor, or would they be able to, we've got care home visiting as well, so it'd be like, are they able to get to and from the car and into the homes easily enough? So it's looking at what reasonable adjustments we can put in place. So what does a great educator look like? So we're looking for someone that's going to support their learning within their scope of practice. So looking at everything that you do as a role, recognizing how wonderful your role is, because I think this is something we don't do very well in social care, is recognizing how amazing we are and recognizing that we have a lot to give. All right, you guys have got a lot to teach. And so understanding that makes you able to impart that level of knowledge and experience and passion about your work, which I know you've all got. We want you to be able to facilitate valuable evidence-based learning experiences. So if they come across something new while they're working with you, we'd expect you to give them some time to maybe go and research it and come back and feed that back to you, either in a presentation to yourself and other members of staff, or in a reflective piece that they can go through with you. We need you to be able to assess the learner's skill and knowledge, which if you are a registrant, there is a specific course that we offer, and we'll support you in learning the skills in order to do that assessment. If you're not a registrant, you can still access the course and learn about what would be expected. But from your point of view as a non-registrant, you would write a testimony for the learner, so somebody who is able to assess could do that on your behalf. We need you to be reflective, objective, and dependable for that learner as well. So what kind of learners could you potentially work alongside in practice? So as I've already alluded to, we have a plethora of healthcare learners that you could work with. We do majoritatively work with nurse learners. So there's 4 different branches. We work mostly with adult nurses, but we also have access to learning disability and mental health nurses, and to a lesser extent, child nurses. But we also have access to physiotherapy learners, occupational therapy learners, speech and language therapists, dietitians, orthotics, podiatrists, all sorts. Anything you can think of, we can get access to. So if you feel that your service users or residents might benefit from coming across somebody from a very different healthcare profession to yourselves, we've also got ways of looking at having long-arm supervisions from someone from that profession to support those learners learning from you. Because we all know, for example, a physiotherapist may work in a physiotherapy department, or might go out and visit on different wards, or may even come out into the community and visit to your homes or to your service users. But during their learning, if they don't gain access to the kind of people that are living out in the community, out in these homes, for example, then they're not going to have that experience and exposure to be able to know how to deal with some more of the complicated conditions, some more of the, be able to communicate with those who struggle to communicate, such as people who've got advanced stage dementia, complex mental health needs, learning disability, may have had strokes that have affected the language. So for those other therapists to learn about those more complex health needs that can impact on the therapy that they need to provide is actually really, really important. And this is something we're trying to concentrate on in the work that we're doing as well. This is just a little bit of a breakdown at looking at the kind of exposure and experience that our student nurses might be looking for. But again, this isn't much different to maybe other healthcare professionals and what they would be looking for from their learning objectives. So a learner in stage 1 or their first year would be looking at really understanding what patient-centered care were, understanding respect, dignity, and learning about effective communication, analysing data and documentation and procedures, really getting to the nitty-gritty of what we document, why it's important to communicate effectively with other members of the team, enabling them to support other people within the team, understanding the roles within the teams that they're working in, and taking those skills learned into other care environments. I'm not going to read each of these because you've all got eyes. I'm sure you're all quite capable of reading them, but it's really about getting to grips with really understanding that patient-centered approach, putting the patient, the service user at the centre of the care that they're providing, and understanding how to utilise all information in order to come up with an effective care plan, depending on whichever healthcare profession they're in. At the end of the day, if we don't personalise the care we're giving, then, you know, you're going to lose that engagement from the service user that you really want to be seeing. And again, working in the community and within social care, we're going to have a much better understanding of the wider local community and those health needs. For somebody in their second year or stage 2 of their learning, they should be really getting to grips with active participation, increasing their confidence and competence in what they should be doing. They're going to be starting to participate at all levels, getting in there with their aseptic techniques. We're going to be expecting them to maybe start doing some audits, some risk assessments. We're going to want them to complete referrals and starting to understand how the different services work together. So for yourselves working out in social care, how you interact with the GP services, how you interact with the community teams, how we organise outpatient appointments, travelling to outpatient appointments. It seems so simple to most people, but you and I know that organising travel to an outpatient appointment is not easy to do. It's quite complex. And the referral process just for getting an ambulance is horrific. But our learners don't understand that. You know, we need to expose them to all the complex. We want them to understand how medication and medication rounds are different. You know, we're not looking at managing an acutely unwell period in that person's time. We're looking in that person's life. We're looking at really complex health needs and how we might marry one set of medication with another set of medication and how they have to take other medications for side effects, and understanding how we look at that massive medicine and make it make sense for that person, and making sure that we're not giving them too much medication and that we are enabling them to have an effective life. Sometimes, risk assessing as to whether how is that medication needed anymore? Is it causing more harm than good? Would the patient's quality of life be better without that medication? And the only way they can make those assessments is if they know that service user, which doesn't happen in an acute setting. They don't know the person at the centre of that care as well as people within social care have got that privilege that you have to really get to know your service users and clients. You're going to be building their exposure again and confidence, and we're going to expect them to start creating and evaluating the care plans with you as well. And in the third year, we're looking for them to just come in. They should be already knowing how to do the basics. We're expecting them to start looking at leading and coordinating care. So within social care environments, we're looking for them to really uphold that person-centered care approach. We're wanting them to get to know these clients in much more detail than they ever have done before with anyone. We want them to take a leading role in those time management, gathering patient details, doing referrals, really getting into grips with the MDT, making those referrals, making those connections, pulling in the therapies that are required. The expectation is that they might need to do some advanced clinical skills such as phlebotomy, nasogastric tube insertion. But again, if these are not available within your environment, that's not as much of a problem as you'd think. We've got ways of working around gaining exposure for these learners, so don't let that be something to put you off if it's a skill that you don't have access to. We have ways of supporting our learners to gain those while still being able to maintain all those excellent learning opportunities that you have within your environment. We should be getting to start doing a lot more work independently. you know, want to take a leadership and management role, want them to start supporting junior members of staff, maybe other students that are on place, maybe supporting or taking lead of a small team of your support staff or your nursing assistants. We wanted them to really start being less blinkered and starting to see the bigger picture and seeing how everything really interacts. And it might be that we expect them to do, especially, you know, if you're a large service, maybe they can look at doing a service improvement project, doing some audit, seeing where there might be gaps in the system, and really putting together a project that can aid your service and really putting their mark on working with you. Or it might be that you and your team have got ideas of things that need to be improved or something that you would like to put in place for your service users, and you can use the learner in their supernumerary state to take that on as a project and guide them, and then they can do that work on behalf of you whilst putting their own spin on it and really leaving a legacy when they leave. And really recognising and appropriately managing those challenging behaviours. You know, we wanted them to understand that they are a patient, client, advocate, and if they don't, they need to get to know the service users that are working with so they can really advocate for them properly. Just some example timetables, really, you know, what to expect to be doing in week 1, week 2, week 3. I'll send these slides out to you in an email. But really we're looking at sort of, you start them off, this is for a first year, for example, so you just introduce them to the unit, do your initial interview, get to know what they're coming in to learn and what they want to do, get them to meet all different members of the team, work with them for a shift or half a shift, depending on which member of staff it is. Start looking at organising spokes at the beginning of the placement for later on in the placement, and becoming familiar with the routines on the unit and any medications that you use regularly. And then this should be really working towards attaining those personal learning objectives. Around halfway through, there's a midpoint. So you can highlight any areas that they're struggling to attain while they're with you. It gives you a chance to say to them, you know, look, I've had some feedback that's been good, or I've had some feedback that's not so good. How can we use this feedback to help guide you for the rest of your placement time here? And again, if you've got any problems with your learner or the placement time, you can ask myself or one of a team to come and sit in with you to support you and the learner to come to an agreement to move forward on an action plan, for example, if they are failing anything. It's really important that we raise any issues with our learners sooner so we can sort it out, and we're here to help with that. And then for the second half of the placement, if everything's going well, it's just to continue to build on that, really gaining confidence and competence, and start working with other professions outside of your social care team, such as your GP, physio, OT, community teams. And depending on how some placements, it's a bit easier to say that some placements are quite short, some placements are quite long, so it'll depend on how long you've got that learner for. And then an example for year 3 is the same, but just much more in depth, sort of really looking at building on those relationships with external services, understanding and maybe taking on a key worker group of clients that they can really get to grips with and really delve deeply into and look at all those complex health conditions and things that they can be working with. Just a little slide here about some other learners that we have access to, or that you may want to encourage within your service to train into, is the training nursing associate. So that is a role that is it was recognised in the 2015 Shaping of Care review, and it was created to try and bridge that role between healthcare assistants and support workers and the RGN. And I know in a lot of social care settings, I think because this took too long to come out, and I think in a lot of social care settings they recognised that a lot sooner than maybe the NHS did, and put together senior nurse and associate roles or care home assistant practitioner roles. This is another role that can be added to the arsenal within a social care environment. There's currently a lot of funding available, so if you have staff within your service that you think would like to do this, there is apprenticeships available in social care. It gets them registered with the NMC, apologies for the typo there, and it's a 2-year apprenticeship route on a foundation degree. So there would be an apprenticeship levy which would be paid to you to pay for the backfill and to pay their wages while they're training with you. And they would be expected to be released for some time and work supernumerary for some of the time that they're with you in order to achieve this course. They'd need a practice assessor and supervisor as well at the within your service. So it's quite a generic role. So it's they come out ready to look after within any specialty. Within the special, oh my goodness, within any specialty, they have to gain exposure within the 4 fields of nursing to ensure that they've got well-rounded. So their expectations to be exposed to adults, children and young people, mental health and learning disability. And they're expected to do that within 3 settings. So for you guys, it would be at home, which would be within the service they work for, close to home, which may be a local GP service, for example, or a community setting that works that interacts with your service. And then the 3rd setting would be in a hospital environment, and the university help provide those placements, or else we would support that. The apprentices do a mix of university theory and practice time. And if anyone's interested, you can get in touch with myself and I'll point you in the right direction. It's an interesting role just to pass on to you, because it might be that we ask if you can support these TNAs on placements as well. But with it being a relatively new role, and with there being funding at the moment to support an apprenticeship within social care, we thought it was important to get this out to you guys as well. Just a bit of a slide here to show the difference between a registered nurse and a registered nursing associate when they qualify. So there's quite a few parts where they are very, very similar. So the expectation is they've got a registration, then they'd need to be an accountable professional. They're expected to promote health and prevent ill health. Now, where the registered nurse can provide and evaluate care, the nursing associate would provide the care, but they would monitor it, so they wouldn't be expected to do the evaluation. Where the nurse can lead and manage the nursing care and work in teams, the nursing associate can work in teams, and they can lead teams, but there always has to be a registered nurse above them taking for them to feed back up to, and they can run teams of other nursing associates, support staff or students beneath them. They're both expected to improve safety and quality of care, and where the registered nurse will coordinate the care across the unit, the nursing associate would contribute to the integrated care. And only the registered nurse can do the assessing and planning of care. The original, when you first get an admission, for example, that assessing and planning of care needs to be done by the registered nurse. If you've got any more questions about nursing associates and the apprenticeships, if you ask at the end, and I can point you in the right direction. So that's a bit of a deflection from where we were going, but I thought it was just important to get that out to you. So what next? So if I haven't bored you to tears and you're still very interested in supporting learners in practice to trade, then you can get in touch with myself and I'll help you complete what's called the Northwest Educational Audit. At the moment, it's a long piece of work, but to be fair, a lot of the questions are quite generic and already answered. So I have one that's pre-filled with a lot of the boxes. So I'll send you one out with some highlighted areas that I'll need you to complete. And it's usually just asking for your contact details, what your shift patterns are like, and things like that. It's not too complex. And I'm quite hands-on, so I can come and support you with all of that. Once the educational audit is completed, what we would do then is we contact a local university and ask them to come in and complete the audit. And what they do from that is they go through the audit, make sure we filled everything in correctly, and they might want to come in and see the service, or they might speak to you over Teams and ask you a few questions just to clarify what's been put in the audit. In the interim from that, we would ask you to complete a contact form for Health Education England. So as we said earlier, there is a tariff attached to learners. So should you wish to be paid for the work that you're doing with the learners, which you're welcome to do, there's a piece of paper where you would put your contact details and your bank details where you'd want to have the tariff paid to, which then gets sent to Health Education England, who will contact you separately and send out a contract that will need to be signed. Once that contract's signed, they will get in touch with you regularly with an email letting you know how much to invoice for. So if every time you have a learner and you sign off their timesheets on par, that gets recorded, and that information goes back to Health Education England so they can see how many hours you've had learners for, and then you'll get paid retrospectively. It's usually 3 times a year, so it doesn't come very quickly, unfortunately, but it will come. The university then complete and sign you off as an accredited clinical learning environment. You get added to the PAR system, which, as we said earlier, is the online practice assessment documentation for all the learners. Once that's all done, sorted out, then you work with us closely and we'll help offer you groups of either 1, 2, 3, however many students you feel you can support. And we'll make sure that we can direct some learners in your direction. And throughout the process of having those learners, you'll be offered support, guidance and training from myself. And then HE said, as I said, HE will contact you regularly to raise the invoice, and those payments are normally made about 3 times a year. This is our teams across the Greater Manchester area. So as far as social care are concerned, you've got your own little team of me and Danielle. We support you throughout all processes. Once you're open and settled, you will be introduced to what we call the locality training hub teams. So as you can see, Wigan and Bolton is myself and Cora, and we'll support you going forward. I mean, you'll always have contact with me regardless. MSTG is Manchester, Stockport, Tameside, and no longer Glossop, apparently, because Glossop have left. And Jenny, Joe and Connor will support you with your placements there. Bury, HMR and Oldham is Danielle and her wonderful admin Laura. And Salford and Trafford is supported by Moira and Joe. And then going forward, that there is a TNA team as well, which is administrated by Laura at the moment. We've got a new member of staff starting soon that'll be taking over there. But in the interim, I can support with any TNA interest within social care. So there was a lot of information there to take on. So I do apologise. But do we have any questions about any of the information I've given? Or has anyone got any questions for... I've just noticed going back into the room, I've got the lovely Tina and Caroline, who are managers that I'm currently working with in homes within Wigan and Bolton. So if anyone's got a question they'd like to ask directly to one of the managers that I'm already working with, that would be welcome too. And I thank you very much for your time listening to me waffle. Louise?
Hi, just a comment, Sarah. That was fantastic.
Thank
you for that presentation. I think it will be, I think a lot of residential nursing, learning disabilities care providers would really appreciate joining one of your webinars. That was really, really informative. Thank you.
Thanks, Louise. I know that Nicola's camera and microphone aren't working, so if you wanted to type any questions, Nicola, that'd be very welcome. Rebecca, did we answer all the questions that you had today?
I think so. I'm just wondering, you know, how it would transfer into dom care really, and if it, you know, if it's something that is being trialled anywhere at all at the moment.
So, at the moment, I haven't worked with domiciliary care before, but I am very interested in doing so and looking at how we could marry that together with other services that we work with. I know that you're in Tameside, aren't you? And I know Tameside Primary Care Network are very forward thinking and hardworking as well. So I don't think we'd struggle to pull together an interesting pathway that could really make benefit of your service.
Yeah, I think we've got a lot to offer really in terms of partnership working. There's a lot of coordination and you know, the general skills really for kind of first year students and getting out there, building relationships.
Exactly. I will say one of the things I think we've lost with COVID is that ability for our learners to really know how to communicate with someone. It's definitely a skill that's getting weaker, that we just can't afford to allow to get weaker. And I think areas like yourselves would be fantastic
It's something I'm definitely interested.
I'd love to set up a meeting and explore that a bit further with you, Rebecca. I think we could really look at doing quite an interesting pilot with you if you'd be willing.
Yeah, fantastic.
That would be amazing. Danielle? Oh, sorry, Rebecca. Interrupted.
No, I'm just saying thanks. Yeah, just mirror what the other lady said. It was, you know, fantastic, really informative. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you so much. Hi, Danielle.
Hello. I was here this whole time. I'm sorry, my internet may go off. I thought if I keep my camera off, then it was nothing will happen. So
I knew you were here.
Yeah, I was. It was absolutely fantastic. Thanks so much, Sarah. It's just a little note about the domiciliary care. I know you're fully aware of this as well, but there is quite substantial guidance. It's just to provide a bit of reassurance. There's a lot of substantial guidance about how to make the most of student nurses. So looking at the social care setting, the community care services for adults and children, so home care services, domiciliary care services, we have actually there's a mapped process for student nurses going into that environment, and we have guidance on how we can map their proficiencies. I was going to say competencies, I've changed proficiencies now. How we can map their proficiencies to be able to work in there, and how, sorry, excuse me, that was my phone, and then how to get the support done and how to marry it up. So the guidance is there. Sarah's fantastic. So if that's something that you're really keen to do, you know, that it's easily done. It's doable. That's the word I'm looking for. Thank you. It is completely doable. So you know, it'd be really exciting. So it was just to give that bit of background there for you there.
No, it would be brilliant, Rebecca. Danielle herself is working with some really good residential works as well, so where there aren't any nursing. So we're already in that, working within these environments where we don't need to have registrants in order for learners to be signed off. Because I think previously that has been a massive misconception, which has stopped services such as yourself being utilised. And you've got so much to give. You've got so much amazing learning opportunities that are being missed because we're going, well, you've not got a nurse. You know, nurses don't have to learn from nurses, and I'm sure Tina and Caroline can back me up with that, because I know Caroline's service definitely is, you know, her students are supported by all the team, not just the nurses, and I'm pretty sure Tina's very similar. You know, they utilise every member of their team to support the learners in practice, because they recognise what everyone in the team's got to offer.
Fantastic, thank you.
No, you're very welcome. And yeah, I'd love to explore how we could create a pathway around the services you provide.
Yeah, have you got my email, Sarah?
Pardon?
Have you got my email, or do you want me to drop it in the chat?
I have got it. Yes, you left it on the form, so I can email you straight afterwards, and we can book in a time.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you.
You are very welcome. Can I ask, is Caroline and Tina, if you've got anything you'd like to add about how hard, how easy it was to become a clinical learning environment, and what you think your services may or may not have benefited from?
Can I start it off? I'd just like to say that I've always believed you get that the benefit that you get from the students is returned back to them. And it's like a 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. And if you put effort in, you'll get the effort back. And it's brilliant seeing them develop. I mean, I've just given one of my talks to the 2 students who got at the minute a whistle-stop tour of mental capacity in dolls. And they came in, and when I asked them what they knew hardly anything. And when we did the question and answer from me at the end of it, they know what informed consent is and everything. And it took me 3/4 of an hour. It doesn't take days. And with regards to the non-nursing, the physio students, you're already aware, Sarah, that it's very hard getting physios to my home because of the advancement of dementia with a lot of our residents. They're largely non-compliant when it comes to assisting physios. for their care, for the residents' care. And so the physios go after one session where they've refused. And the physio students have formulated a fantastic rehab. And when we get the next ones in, they're picking it up from where we're continuing. And again, it's benefited us as much as it's benefited them. And I don't see, I mean, if you can't be bothered spending a little bit of time, even as a manager, with the students, well, then I would say don't bother getting students down. I do think you need to want them, and B, be able to make time for them on at times, and it works. I wouldn't do without them.
We've just done a really successful pilot with physiotherapists at Caroline's home. So we're hoping to feed that back soon. I think we're gonna write it up, because it'd be nice to be able to. The idea would be to be offering the same plethora of learners across other social care environments. I think we're trying occupational therapists next, aren't we, Caroline?
And again, occupational therapy will complement and assist our activity coordinator, and so it'll develop again for the resident, just enhance bits of resident care.
Oh, it's good. There was some teaching as well, wasn't there? The students were teaching your staff how to provide physiotherapy support as well, which was really, really good.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Like, I might be a manager and I might be a nurse, but I haven't got a clue what physio is. And they were leading it, and it was brilliant.
No, it really was. Thank you, Caroline. Thanks for coming today for me.
It's a pleasure. Don't call again.
I don't know if Tina wants to add anything.
I mean, so I've been in nursing homes since I qualified myself as a nurse, which is 20 years. To set up the actual student wasn't hard, as you said, Sarah. You gave us a lot of support, sort of guided us. Even though I've mentored students in the past, never as an old manager have I had to sort of develop a programme for student nurses. We've been very lucky on the students we've got. I mean, we're quite, as you know, we're quite a challenging environment for our students. And we've had a RGN, we've just started an LD nurse, and then we've had 3 mental health students, one coming towards the end of the first year, and then the 2 I've got currently are both coming towards the end of the 3rd year.
Yeah, they're qualifying, aren't they?
They certainly are. And as Caroline said, it, you know, sort of the 2/3 of students, they've all had something to give, don't get me wrong, they've all had something to give, but the 1/3 of students, it's great. They're so, you know, it's like, go and do that, Johnny, go and do that, Jed. They're running shifts, you know, they're dealing with doctors, they're doing audits, they're doing care plans, they're, you know, so they've done, and, you know, Jade has actually approached me if we had any jobs. Unfortunately, I've not got any. Which is so, I mean, that's really nice that, you know, because most, let's be honest, more new qualified nurses think we need to go into the NHS. That's what we need. That's how our future needs to be. I'm testament that you don't need to work in the NHS. Like I said, I came out of university and I went straight into the nursing home environment. I did a stint in the NHS for 2 years and I wouldn't go back. So that is a good, you know, and like I said, it's nice having them here. It's nice showing off our own, you know, they've done, you know, they get involved in all the activities, you know, and it's nice watching our students speaking to our service users with the first names. They just know them all. And, you know,
it's that personability, isn't it?
Yeah, Johnny at the minute is dealing with one of our service users, and he's this particular guy can be difficult to say the least, but he actually had a good relationship with him. So he would take his medications, everything off him, because he don't always, you know, he either likes you, he doesn't like you. And he's sort of taken a bit of a physical, mental decline these last few days. So John is like dealing with all of that. He's with the GP. He's done his best interest meeting because we have to go back to covert meds with him. And he said to me this morning, Johnny, he said, I'll remember him forever. And I said to him, you will, 20 years down the line when you're with other students, showing them, I said, he'll be one that always comes. And I think that is absolutely fabulous that they've wanted to do that. It's not just been, oh, it's just part of 3 month ending my placement. I'll get it done and I go. You know, they've wanted to be here and you know, and that. And of course, Purity was my very first student. She was fab. You know, we've been very fortunate on the students that have come through the doors. I might be interested in them physios and them OTs.
Well, we will be opening those discussions soon, Tina. I thought I'd start you off nice and light to go with. You've only
I would say to anybody, you don't, you know, it's a pleasure to work with the students and think, you know, you're part of their development.
Yeah.
You're part of their teaching. You're part of the way they become a nurse for future. And that to me it's a lot of reward. You know, my staff, such as you said, so you know, it doesn't have to be a qualified member of staff. Let's be fair. There's a lot of HCAs out there who probably know more than a lot of nurses.
They really do.
You know, and whatever. So it's not all about having that clinical, and that's what I've said to the students. It's not being a nursey nurse. It's not about medication rounds. It's not about giving injections, doing a dressing. No, that's just a very, very small part of being a nurse. Yeah. So hopefully, you know, so to any of you out there who are thinking about it, I would certainly, it's a lot of reward. We've certainly got a lot of reward from it. So.
Can I just say, Tina, I do a weekly teaching for the students.
Yeah.
And it ranges from when swallowing goes wrong, MCA, Parkinson's, diabetes. If there's a way, we're going to start Zooming my session.
That would be good, Caroline. Yeah, that would be really good.
Your current learner, Caroline, has offered to help you do that. I've given it her as her project to get you online. That's her service improvement project for this placement, Rihanna.
Ah, right.
It's her service improvement project to get you online.
Have you got me? Well, Sarah, can you send my email?
I'll introduce you both.
Yeah, that'd be really good, that, Carol. It'd be nice to have that community, wouldn't it? You know.
And I only charge £50 an hour.
And again,
cheat that, Caroline. Cheat that.
Well, I'm a Scouser. I'm a Scouser, so I've got to make money.
Oh, somebody's put a penny in her. She's off. Going forward, I am going to be starting a social care learning environment forum because I want to bring you all together as managers that have got a passion to support learners. I want to bring you all together and I want you to be able to do this to exchange ideas, exchange information and exchange your teaching sessions because it's just a wonderful opportunity. So we will be doing this.
To be fair, Sarah, I'm actually happy to anybody else out there. You know, I don't know what types of homes the other homes are. As you know, like I said, we're quite a challenging can be quite a challenging. You know, I'm quite happy to offer out for a sport placement for any students that go into any of the other homes who would like to come spend the day with us. As again, students that come in may want to go to the other homes that are also part of this hub. So, you know.
Thank you so much, Tina. And I'm sure there'll be plenty of people taking you up on that offer as well. As you can see, we're a lovely, we're becoming a lovely community. So hopefully those of you who are listening and on the fence, that might be enough to push you into getting in touch with us. And hopefully we can include you in our clinical learning environment community going forwards. I thank you all so much for your input and your questions and your time today. It's been absolutely wonderful. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Speak soon.
Thanks, Sarah.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye. You can stop recording now, Jamie.